Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Rev Steve from the Spiritual Awareness Center, located in beautiful Fresno, California. Fresno, the heart of the Central Valley, and the Central Valley, the heart of the great state of California. As I say each and every week, we got a whole lot of heart going on here today. It is a great day. We got a lot of greatness to share, to experience, to express, and to incorporate in our moment-to-moment life experience as we move forward in our study. I've been working through this book that is currently The Art of Life by Ernest Holmes, but it was originally published as This Thing Called Life. And when I when I decided to go through this, my intention was maybe to take 4 or 5 weeks, but as I was getting into it, funny thing happened. I decided that I really wanted to spend some time because some of the concepts that Dr. Holmes shares in this book are key to each and every one of us as individuals seeking to embody within our own life experience a greater expression of livingness. And, in order for us to do that, a couple things we have to do. One, we have to recognize that there are beliefs that we presently hold that have limited us. Now, we may not even be aware that we have those beliefs, but we have them. As one of my favorite quotes by a Scottish psychologist or psychiatrist. His name was, I believe, R.D. Lang or something like that. Lang, L-I-A-N-G. But the quote goes something like, the things that we do and say are limited by what we fail to notice. And because we've failed to notice that we've failed to notice, there's little that we can do to change until we notice how failing to notice has shaped our thoughts and deeds. So our job in our spiritual journey is to acquaint ourselves with those things about ourselves that we fail to notice. One of the very unique concepts of New Thought, science of mind and spirit in particularly, is that we don't look outside of ourselves to create change in our life. We don't see the outside as being responsible for the life experience that we express and the life experience that we experience. Ultimately, how we move through our life is ultimately our own personal responsibility, if you will. And sometimes for some people, when we talk about that concept of personal responsibility, they want to find issues that they can point to outside of themselves and say, well, if this was different or if that was different, and if only, because life mirrors back to us. And once we begin to have that as our personal realization, that life is literally mirroring back to us that which we have created within ourselves, then there's things that we can do about it. So we want to find out what it is that we hold as beliefs within ourselves that maybe we don't know. We hold those beliefs at a subjective, subconscious mind level, if you will. Some of those beliefs we learned as we were growing up, and some of those beliefs we kind of just embodied because there's this, whether you want to call collective unconscious, the race consciousness, and we're not talking about racial, but races and human race, that there is certain concepts, ideas that are held there that we can be subject to. And so we got to face those facts. And then once we have come to that point of realization, then we begin to seek to learn and embody tools that will help us change those things within ourselves. And the great thing about this, and I know it's counterintuitive for a lot of people, but the truth is that once we begin to put those tools into practice and we seek to change within ourselves by creating within ourselves the peace, the beauty, the harmony that we want to see expressed in our life, that life outside of us will begin to change. And so it's not about what the outside has to do for us to be at peace or in harmony or have success or friendship, love, and the list goes on. And every one of those things on that list are things that we attribute as an attribute to that which we call God or first cause or the divine source of all that is. So this is our journey, is a journey of unfoldment within ourselves, self-realization, learning tools, making commitment to put those tools into practice in our day-to-day life experience. And then as things begin to what we call demonstrate or manifest in our life, that we claim those things. We don't just say, well, isn't that nice? I've been working on positive consciousness, if you will, and something positive happened in my life. It doesn't work that way. Every time you see something unfold in your life that is a demonstration along the lines of that which you're seeking to express in your life, claim it. Even if you don't fully believe it at that point, claim it anyway. As you begin to do this, you'll see more and more things unfold in your life. And of course, included in that is, in the claiming, is the gratitude. And gratitude is the, if you will, it's the magic key that opens so many doors. So, okay, I was in chapter 5 last week, and I'm going to go back to something that I think that I covered. Let's see here. Chapter 5. Okay, I just had my finger on it. One of the things about a live show is that it's alive. And in this live, okay, we covered that. We covered this, and here we go. And go back. I do have the page in the textbook that I want to start with. And this is, if you happen to have what we call the textbook, the Science of Mind, we're going to...
954 Road 222 in North Fork, California. The Gnarly Carrot is a local, natural, seasonally changing market offering a wide range of products from local Central Valley vendors. Get your caffeine fix, grab a smoothie, and support small businesses. Learn more at kernfamilyfarm.com and visit the Gnarly Carrot today.
Hi, I'm the host of New Thought Talk, Rev Steve, and I want to take a moment today and give you an opportunity to support our ministry, support our show. You can do that through a PayPal payment. You send the payment through PayPal to the email address of Madera, MADERA SAC @gmail.com. If you don't have a PayPal account, you can go down below the link and you can find where you can enter a debit or credit card. I want to thank those that have supported us and those that will continue to support us. You have a great day. Bye.
If your home floods, who will you call? When your house springs a leak, it's time to call Clean Master Emergency Flood Service at 559-213-9430. Clean Master will be there in 60 minutes to start fixing your home. And Clean Master bills your insurance directly, saving you the hassle because you've got enough to worry about. Clean Master also offers carpet and upholstery cleaning, carpet repair, pet odor removal, and more. Remember, Clean Master Emergency Flood Service, 559-213-9430, and visit cleanmasterflood.com.
Okay, welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, Rev Steve. So I found the place I was looking for, and it was right in front of me all the time. So go figure, right? Holmes talks about, he says, can you imagine a power so great that it is both an infinite presence and a limitless law? Can you imagine that? That's what he's talking about. And he talks about, he says, most of the Bibles in the world have said that all things are formed by its word, and it means God, the divine principle, all right? So this word has been called the secret word, the lost word. It is said that some of the ancients had a holy scroll upon which was inscribed the sacred and secret name of life, life with a capital L. Again, we're talking about the divine. And he says, so what do you suppose was inscribed on this sacred scroll? Just this, I am. Now, that's important for many different reasons. But what's important for us to understand as we're seeking to move down our spiritual journey path, if you will, is how that relates to us. And so in the Science of Mind, the textbook, on page 72, under the first great discovery, Holmes writes, he says, the first great discovery man made was that he could think. This was the day when he first said, I am. He said this marked the first day of personal attainment. From that day, man became an individual and had to make all further progress himself. From that day, there was no compulsory evolution. He had to work in conscious union with life, with God, with the principle, to create a greater degree of livingness, higher, greater degree of livingness. And so from that time, that's what humanity has done. And if you look at history, the history of the human race, it's full of all sorts of stuff. But this history is a constant, slow, upward spiral of growth in consciousness. Yes, there are things in the world today that are just as horrendous as were in the world back in the early days of the Hebrews, but they're in a great minority. They're not in the majority. And there's so much more in the world today that is amazing and life-supporting and in alignment with principle and good and in abundance that we have available to us. But as individuals, we still go back to that I am and what that means for us. Because when we recognize that within us, in this body that we have, which is a purveyor, if you will, for our consciousness. Within this is that which created us. We are an expression of God, individualized as each and every one of us. And we have the capability to become aware of that which is within us. And that's what this book is about, the art of life, or this thing called life. So anyway, he says, what is meant by the words I am? Capital letters. Life says, I am this and I am that. And immediately this and that appear. And they begin to take form according to law, life being the divine principle. Okay? When life speaks, life always works in accord with law. It is an intelligence plus law. Consciousness within each and every one of us is that level of intelligence. Trower talks about when he talks about the higher degree of livingness, the greater degree of intelligence, and he speaks of this in the Doré lecture. And I want to cut to this real quick, okay? Because he says here, okay, he says, these considerations, when he talks about intelligence and livingness, he says, these considerations show us that what differentiates a higher form from the lower degree of intelligence is this recognition of its own selfhood. The I am, the recognition of our own selfhood. And the more intelligent that recognition is, the greater will be the power. What power is he talking about? The power that exists to be found within each and every one of us. He says the lower degree of self-recognition that it is, he says, which only realizes itself as an entity separate from all other entities, as the ego is distinguished from the non-ego, is just that lower degree of intelligence. He says, but the higher degree of self-recognition is that which, realizing its own spiritual nature, sees in all other forms not so much a non-ego or that which is not itself, but as an alter ego, or that which is itself in a different mode of expression. Now, it is this higher degree of self-recognition that is the power by which mental science produces the results. Your results. Mental science, science of mind, divine science, various different types of spiritual teachings that embodied the concept of science. Now, this was done at an early part of the 20th century, so science as they understood it then maybe is not quite as we understand science today, but it still was a concept of there is a process that, when followed, that if we all do the same process, we will all get essentially the same results, which is a basic scientific principle that if you add A plus B, you get C. And if I add A plus B and get C, and anybody else adds A plus B and gets C, then we develop a theory around which we can share that with other people, and they will find that when they take A and they add it to B, they also will get C. There is within us a consciousness, a power, that when we become aware of it, that we become aware of our relationship to it, that we can put that power into effect, into practice in our life. This is partly what Jesus was teaching when he walked the face of the earth. He was a radical rabbi. He got himself in a whole world of hurt because he brought a teaching to the world that was not real well received by the priestly class back in his day, and ultimately it did cost him everything that he had, and he lost this, okay? But the teaching exists. It's still there to be read and found. We can find it in the Bible. We can find it in some of the other books that were written at that time that he walked, or shortly after he walked the face of the earth, and some of the teachings ended up there rather than in the New Testament because they didn't, as the proto-church was beginning to compile the canon of the New Testament, there were some things that they felt they didn't want in the book, basically, so they left them out. Some of those things are anecdotal, but some of those things are things that he actually taught. New Thought has brought some of those ancient teachings back to life. Other spiritual teachings have brought some of those teachings back to life. The bottom line is there's a power and a presence for good in the universe, but it's available to each and every one of us. It's available at the level of our belief and our faith and our willingness to put it into practice in our life as a way of living this, that we may live at an ever higher and greater degree. And so that's what we're talking about. He said, Holmes goes on to say, the law of life operates through your affirmation. Okay, we talked a little bit about this last week. Our affirmation is not just, a sentence that we repeat once or twice. Our affirmation is our conscious commitment, dedication, and practice to affirming a greater good to be expressed in our life as the truth of who we are. It's a big bite for a lot of people to digest, if you will, but I've talked about this concept that we are all created equal. We're not all born equally. And so what that translates into life experience and expression is some people are born into this life experience with more advantages apparently than others. But the truth is, we're all born into this life experience expression with all the tools that we need once we discover them as potential for each and every one of us by the great creator of all that is, by God. Seeking to experience that which lives within us and express that in our life connects us with that potential, if you will. And the more that we do, the more we practice, the more we learn, the greater the degree, the higher degree of livingness, and the more amazing life becomes for us, and the greater we're able to demonstrate and express in our life. And it's awesome. So the law of life operates through your affirmation. He says, nothing can hinder its workings but yourself. Nothing. No matter where you're at, nothing. The only thing that can hinder it from expressing is you, is I. When we begin to look at it from that way, from that understanding, then we have to step into the understanding that ultimately we are individually responsible for how we experience life. Life comes at us at the speed of life. There are tragedies that we will experience. There is suffering, if you will, that we will experience. But how we experience those is it's open to discussion, because we can learn. Just like we learn most any other skill, we can learn to meet life on our terms, not on the terms that so-called reality and life and happenstance set for us. We look at some things, we recognize them as challenges. You have to realize you've been doing that right from the moment you came into this world. If you learned to communicate, you had to struggle. If you learned to walk, you had to struggle. When we define that, just like I did, as struggling, and we look out into the world and see that all life is struggling, as the Buddha said, then we see life from a position that life does to us. But if we look at life and say, okay, I came into this world and the first thing I needed to accomplish was to learn to communicate, and I overcame that, I transcended it. The next thing I had to accomplish was the ability to mobilize my little body around so that I could walk and get into things and create havoc in the world, if you will. I did that. I transcended that. It's a minor shift in how we look at the world, but it has major consequences in our day-to-day life experience. I'm going to take our next break, and we'll talk about that, and we'll move forward when we come back.
We forget about the higher good of food, right? You're growing a product that people enjoy really all over the world. I mean, how does that make you feel?
I think about that all the time. I think about the families sitting around a table, enjoying a meal. I just see that what we do brings families together.
I mean, we're blessed. We're in paradise for food.
Doctor in Sukasa allows you to connect with your doctor when you need a quick treatment. Avoid a trip to a medical clinic or emergency room and connect by video with your doctor from your home, work, or anywhere. Just go to drinsukasa.com on your phone, tablet, or computer. Dr. in Sukasa provides quality care that is convenient, bilingual, and affordable, so you are never left without access to health care. Visit drinsukasa.com today.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I hope you've been enjoying the show today. As we go through this, there's just so much of this that I contemplate, I think about, and I meditate on a regular basis. And when we grasp that for ourselves, to say that it's life-changing is kind of anticlimactic, if you will. It's life-creating from a way that humanity has never been taught since the time of Jesus, that it was available to us, but it's always been there. That was the gift that New Thought brought into the world at the beginning of the 20th century. We see that reflected at least in the Western part of the world, in positive consciousness and so many other things that basically were lifted out of the New Thought movement. Why? Because they worked. There were authors that wrote books and teachers that taught about it. But ultimately, we've got to come back to I am. That I am is each and every one of us as an individual. That we are the divine expressed as us. That there is a power and a presence for good that exists, that reacts to us, that we can be directive in our own life experience. But the responsibility for whether we're experiencing life in a uplifting and abundant way, or if we're trudging through life because there's so much that we suffer from life and what life brings to us, how we can shift that. What Holmes believed, and I share this on a regular basis, and I'm going to do it again right now, is that when enough individuals embody the consciousness that they have within themselves a power and a presence that will respond to them at the level of their belief, when there's enough people that on the face of the earth that embody that as an understanding that good comes from within, okay, that when we do that, there's a realization that the good that comes from within takes nothing from anyone else. Imagine, if you will, if the entire or a major part of the percentage of the population had that in their consciousness. So many things that are problematic in the world, if you will, that people are running around telling other people what they need to do to make life a better life, to make the world a better world, it all goes away. Because when we understand that underneath this physical form that there's a unity, a oneness, that there is no separateness divided by tribes, by culture, by geography, that there is just a oneness, and that as we seek to express a greater good for ourselves that is available to us by the divine principle working through us in a way that we don't take from another. We express through ourselves. And in doing so, we uplift our livingness and consciousness. Imagine what that world would be like. I don't know I don't know how far you want to take that out, but would we even need a world government or a national or national governments or whatever? So many things in the world, but it's got to come from within the individual, not from the outside being imposed on the individual. And there, today, my personal belief is where humanity has run into some issues, because the minute that you have one group telling another group, then you've got conflict. And we can't have conflict, not if we're going to change the world. That was Holmes' belief, and I'm right on board with that, if you will, he said. So we go on. He says, as we move forward here, and we're going to finish up chapter 5, he says there is one heart that is common to all men. Think about one heart that's common to all humanity. Holmes uses the pronoun men, but he's talking about humanity, men, women, and any variance in between, beyond, above, below, however you want to self-describe. It's not important. When you choose to make that your shield that you have to beat the outside world down with, because you need that for your own self to be valid within yourself, you've already defeated yourself. There is more inertia than you can overcome. But when you create the livingness, the goodness within yourself, however you choose to do that, keeping in mind that we take nothing from anybody else, which means that we're always in alignment with other people. We may not agree with them, but we can disagree with them from a point of a consciousness of love. That love is an energy. That energy expresses. How do we choose to do that? Personal to us. It's personal to us as a choice. It's personal to us in an expression in our life. So I'm going to kind of wrap up chapter 5 with that and move on to chapter 6. we're a little short today, so I'm going to try and get through this. In chapter 6, Holmes says, he gives an example of a young lady that was trying to break into the motion picture profession, and she was someone that Dr. Holmes knew. He helped her with not by going out and demanding that she be hired, but he helped her by her creating what it was that she wanted to see expressed in her life within herself as that inner reality, and at a level of belief and faith that inner reality is an expression of an already so truth, if you will. Okay? So he says, let each seek reality, in capital R, in his or her own way, and if he is or she is sincere, surely that presence to which the very hairs of our head are numbered will honor their approach. That presence, that power is available to each and every one of us. It's a presence and a power for good. Good cannot have anything expressed in alignment with it that holds within its expression something contrary to the good itself. We're at this level, we're trying to embody spiritual concepts that are vast, if you will, that are beyond what, when we think about the divine, we think about God as the guy that walked through the garden, or the various other incarnations that have been the descriptor of God. We've kind of blown that out, okay? When Jesus said God is spirit and we must worship God in spirit, that's an infiniteness that exceeds space and time, that is beyond all that is, and yet all that is contained within it and is an expression of it. But one of the teachings in New Thought is an understanding that as we seek to put principle into practice in our life, we have to bring ourselves into alignment with principle and what it is. And part of that alignment is the understanding, the realization that there can't be anything that is contrary to it, that is in opposition to it, that takes from, that holds limitation, that, and you can go on, hate, so on and so forth. Whether it be for individuals, cultures, things, doesn't make any difference. We have to clear the deck in our minds, in our consciousness, and in its place, we just put the awareness of the divine principle, and understanding that in that awareness, we're talking about love. We're talking about beauty, peace, harmony, okay? That's the power that we hold within ourselves. That's where we can go. Many times people think that they can go part way down the road, but they don't have to go all the way down the road. Well, spirituality is kind of an all or nothing thing. You don't kind of believe in God, or you don't kind of not believe in God. There's either a belief or there's not a belief. And no judgment one way or another. You're at wherever you're at. Your choices are your choices. Life is mirroring back to you that which you seek to have life mirror back to you. Whether you want to take credit for it or not is not important. There's enough evidence that is truth and that is so. And there's enough evidence also that tells us that we can change if we don't like what it is that life is mirroring back to us, regardless of what it is. Big concept, available to each and every one of us. So, moving on, he says, he's going through, he's showing, giving examples of how he works and has worked with individuals in various walks of life, whether it be in the entertainment industry or someone that's working to create prosperity in their life. Relationships, health, prosperity, self-expression, your ability to make connection. In today's world, your ability to, connect out on the internet, if you will. Everything that you want to see expressed in your life in potential lives within you. Where do you want to be? What are you willing to commit to? Not give lip service to, but commit to. What are you willing, how much time out of the day are you willing to give to yourself because you are awesome and you deserve that time? And the answer is you don't need to commit a whole lot of time in the concentrated sense of meditation, treatment, affirmation, so on, learning. But you have to commit to the entire 24/7, if you will, of husbanding the old negative habits of thinking that you've had or shepherding and reversing those within yourself, within your thoughts, within your thinking pattern. And the thing is, it's amazing, but you can do it. I said it's amazing, and I said you can do it. I didn't say necessarily that it's easy. For some people, it's easy. For some people, they experience great success in the beginning, and then they seem to struggle onward because doubt and worry or whatever come in, or they fall under the influence of people that tell them, well, it's just so much untruth or whatever. Commit to it. Stick with it. It will express in your life. It can do nothing else. That's how divine science, religious science, these various other spiritual practices that in the early part of the 20th century ended up with science as a part of their name. People begin to put it into practice. People put it into practice to create wholeness in their life experience. And there was a large enough group of people at that time that saw the effect of that, the effectiveness of that they began to put it into practice in their lives, not necessarily with the intention of embodying a whole new spiritual paradigm, but they still they got some of the basics down and they got it, if you will. But there's more to it. And the payoff to the more is the world that we have the ability to create. And we have that ability. How much do we want it? How much are we willing to commit to it? And that's the question we have to face. He says, circumstances do not create themselves. They are always molded by someone's thought patterns, whatever the circumstances are. Limitation, health issues, relationship issues, whatever the outside is mirroring back to us, it is mirroring back to us. And we have to realize and own up to the fact that the mirror is the mirror that we hold up. Okay? So he says faith. Well, first I want to go back here. The law of mind and spirit responds to us by corresponding with our mental attitudes. That is, it operates for us through our belief. Big chunk. You willing to take that bite? If that's too big of a bite, are you willing to take a small bite and another small bite and then another until you have embodied and ingested that whole concept? He says, because faith, and this is where we have to go with this. He says, faith is a power which every person has, but which few people use consciously. It's a power. Power exists within you, works for you. He says, one person does not possess this power above another or to a greater degree. Everyone has this power, and since everyone has consciousness, everyone has this power since everyone has consciousness. The question then is not, do we have the power? It's merely, are we using it? That recognition that I am. I am. You are that I am. We all are that I am. So we take our last break, come back, and we'll wrap up our day today.
Are you thinking of selling your home? Since 2004, the Souza Group, brokered by eXp Realty, has specialized in premier property listings and sales located in the Clovis Unified and North Fresno markets. The Souza Group will do their best to exceed your expectations. Visit ClovisUnifiedHomes.com.
With Organic Pastures Raw Milk, you're getting a product that has been meticulously managed from grass to glass. From our pastures to our dairy, creamery, and distribution, we work hard to produce a product that is safe and clean for you.
Got lactose intolerance or dairy allergies? Discover delicious raw milk and discover dairy the way it's supposed to be. We provide tours and would love to see you. Come visit the cows, watch the milking, the cheese being made, and learn all about raw milk. We're just 20 miles south and west of Fresno, California. Call to schedule a tour at 559-846-9732.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
You enter this door with expired tags. Beyond is another dimension, a dimension of regulations, a dimension of long waits. You have reached the registration zone. What looks like an ordinary shop is actually Mitchell's Smog, located in the heart of the Tower District, a few minutes from the DMV. Mitchell's Smog offers your vehicle a STAR-certified smog inspection. So remember Mitchell's Smog when you need to pass through the registration zone.
Christy Majors is your local real estate connection. With a solid, hardworking team, traditional listings, short sales, probate listings, and foreclosures are treated in a personal and caring way and close in a timely fashion. Since 2009, Team Majors has closed more than $75 million worth of homes all over California.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, Rev Steve. So, working on through, and we're going to wrap this up here shortly. Again, faith is a power which every person has within, but few people use consciously. Okay? One person does not possess this power above another or to a greater degree. Everyone has this power since everyone has consciousness. I covered that at the end of the last segment. I wanted to start off this segment with that. He says, there's a law which now holds us in bondage. But it's this very law, this very same law that limits our life experience and expression. It's the same law that can free us. He says, anyone can use the law of life. Anyone can use it consciously. Most of us use it, but we use it at a level of ignorance. He says the law of life is already in your mind, within you, okay? He says your problem is to apply it. It is something that you can apply to your everyday needs, as mundane as your everyday needs, from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to sleep, through your sleeping period, to the time you wake up in the morning. Through all of it, the law is available. You have the ability to direct and how it expresses in your life. He says the power of life within you is a spiritual power able to bring to you permanent peace, increasing happiness, joy, and greater material abundance. These things which have made, the lack of these things which have made individuals unhappy are the same things that we can create and produce. The law will create and produce in abundance in our life experience at the level of our belief. He says the only thing that can bring this peace, joy, prosperity to the world is a direct experience by each and every one of us of what he calls the invisible, of the divine. You know, New Thought authors address this in many different ways, but the idea of experiencing the expression of the divine is available to each and every one of us. Once we have reached that point of realization, if you will, there's never any doubt. You know, and you know that you know. It's available to each and every one of us. But again, just like mastering a musical instrument is available to each and every one of us, or any of the other great skills is available to each and every one of us. But we only experience it and express it in our lives at the level that we're willing to commit to practice and doing it. And it's the same thing in our spiritual journey. The idea that we can commit to it, the idea that we can put it into practice in our day-to-day life experience. You know, there's a story that I heard years ago. at some professional seminar that I was going to about a world-class piano player, and he gave a concert, and it was for wealthy people, and it was to raise money. And after he was done, there was a woman that came up, and she was talking to him about it. She says, I would give anything to play like you play. And he looked up at her and said, no, you wouldn't. And I know that because you didn't. So in our life experience and expression, how much are we willing to do that? How much are we willing to put into practice, okay? So the acceptance of the power is the first step towards its use. Okay, we begin with the acceptance, and then we seek to put it into practice, all right? He says, the power of the law of life also exists everywhere. There's no space where it's not. Faith acts in accord with this law. We can put this into practice. It's available to each and every one of us. I'm gonna end it here for today. If you happen to have a copy of the book, I'm on page 56, still in chapter 6. We'll pick that up because he closes off the last part of this chapter. He goes through the Lord's Prayer and how the true genius of that prayer, what it taught, and how we can utilize that as individuals, put it into practice in our life. I hope you're enjoying this series as we go through this book. I hope even more so that you take what we've shared, that you put it into practice in your life, and I know that if you do that, your life will express a greater and higher degree of livingness that is available to you. So we'll close off knowing that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we're at, God is there. All is well. Have a great week. Know that I will be treating for each and every one of you just as an expression of greater good in life in general, and I'll see you next week. Have a great week. Bye.
Are you thinking of selling your home? Since 2004, the Souza Group, brokered by eXp Realty, has specialized in premier property listings and sales located in the Clovis Unified and North Fresno markets. The Souza Group will do their best to exceed your expectations. Visit clovisunifiedhomes.com. If your home floods, who will you call? When your house springs a leak, it's time to call Clean Master Emergency Flood Service at 559-213-9430. Clean Master will be there in 60 minutes to start fixing your home. And Clean Master bills your insurance directly, saving you the hassle because you've got enough to worry about. Clean Master also offers carpet and upholstery cleaning, carpet repair, pet odor removal, and more. Remember, Clean Master Emergency Flood Service, 559-213-9430. And visit cleanmasterflood.com.